Welcome back, everyone, to the Tron podcast. This is your host, Rashad Woods, coming from the great state of Texas. I have a very successful entrepreneur, businesswoman, mother, wife, Ms. Jessica Upton. Thank you so much for joining me on the Tron podcast, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you have such a wonderful background that you segue into your own travel service. And obviously, I had a chance to research what you do as well. Some very funny videos of people who don't, quote unquote, do it the right way. How did you get into the travel business?
Yeah, so I actually started initially in the events world. So I had an event planning company based here in Austin
Right,
and did a lot of high-end events, weddings, and it was something that I was good at, but not
nice,
necessarily passionate about.
right.
And so I knew that I didn't want that to be my end game. And my husband and I had a destination wedding in Mexico. He actually worked for a luxury hotel brand for many years. And through that brand, we were able to travel a good amount, including
Fantastic.
our honeymoon to Thailand.
I saw that.
Yeah, yeah. So that kind of initially sparked my interest in the travel world. We didn't really travel a lot growing up, especially not internationally. It was only domestic. And so having that initial experience with using a travel advisor for my own destination wedding and also seeing that what I was doing in event planning kind of translated those skills translated over to travel planning. It's like I think this is kind of the direction that I want to go, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And so I was able to work under a travel agency owner, just kind of learning the ropes
for
for
sure.
about a year and a half, and then decided to go out on my own. So that's kind of
Fantastic.
how I landed in it.
So, what are the misconceptions about people who would utilize travel agencies? Only because I heard a lot of it growing up as a kid, but then it kind of everybody's like, "Oh, I can Expedia it, I can do," and I'm
Yeah.
not. This isn't me. I'm just generally curious. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's a process that's a lot harder than people think that it is, or they're not getting
Yeah.
the benefit out of their free time that they thought they were. So, what are the benefits that somebody by utilizing your services that people get that they wouldn't get by using just the click of a button?
Yeah, yeah, great question. I mean, I feel like that's the very first question that I get most times whenever people hear that I own a travel agency. And sure, yes, absolutely you can go online and book your own travel. And for some people that's perfectly fine and that's okay.
Correct.
But if you want customized recommendations based
Right.
upon you as a human being and your preferences and your wishes, you can do hours and hours of research online and still not really know if it's going to be good for you. I mean,
Sure.
just taking something as simple as an all-inclusive resort in Mexico.
Right.
Just in the Cancun region alone, I mean, there's hundreds of resorts, fitting
Correct.
kind of that all-inclusive box.
Right.
But what is it that you're looking for? What's important to you? Are
Yeah.
you taking kids? Are you not? How far away from the airport do you want to be? Is food important to you? Like all of those sorts of things, really kind of honing in on what is important to you on your trip. You're not going to get that by Googling it or even through AI. Um,
Right. It's a personalized
that's
experience, right?
yeah, yeah, it's a very personalized experience. And part of my job too, and one of the things that I love so much about what I do is getting to know my clients more and more every trip. That
Yeah.
way each trip can be that much more personalized. So that's one aspect of it. And then there's also because of my relationships with suppliers all throughout the world, whether it be hoteliers, tour operators, private guides, that sort of
Right.
thing, because of those relationships, I'm able to advocate on my clients' behalf with them.
Right.
So whether it be complimentary amenities that they're getting, like a room upgrade,
Nice.
free breakfast, or if it's just letting them know, hey, they're celebrating their honeymoon on this trip. If there's anything that you can do special, can you please do it for them? Whether it be a bottle of champagne or something more personalized. Like I love for honeymoon couples, if I can get in touch with a wedding planner and get a
Yeah.
picture from their wedding and have
Nice.
that printed and put in their room. So whenever they get there for their honeymoon, there's a
It
picture of
means
their
that
wedding.
much more.
Yeah, yeah. Just letting them
Right.
know that I'm trying to really get to know them and the things that they care about, and then having those little surprises along the way make the trip just that much more special. So
Yeah, and I think too that you hit it on, a really important point because that's your free time, right? It's already difficult enough when it comes to anybody who's ever traveled through an airport with children. It's an absolute, there's very few more soul-sucking experiences than that. It'll take a piece of you that you didn't know existed, right?
that it will. Yes.
And if I think that's important, like when you land, like literally, especially somewhere where you haven't been, all of a sudden you have that kind of what am I supposed to do? Like,
Yeah.
was the place good or not? Am I trusting the Google reviews? So
Yeah.
the onboarding process to somebody or couple, and you don't just work just with couples, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But what's the onboarding process like for somebody who's utilizing your services?
Yeah, yeah. So whenever someone reaches out, I try to get the kind of basic information about what they're looking for on their trip. And then it's
Hmm.
really hopping on a phone call.
Right,
We can go back and forth through email, tons of emails, but hopping on a phone call is really where I can kind of get into the meat of it all of
for sure.
what is it that is most important to them on this particular
Right,
trip, because it can change. Again, as you had mentioned, I don't do couples, but families as well, groups. But say it's a couple that's going on their honeymoon, and then a couple years later, they're taking their baby. And then a
hmm,
couple years later, it's a whole family trip. And so each trip is going to be different, right? So,
absolutely.
really understanding what's important to them on this particular trip. And then from there, starting to make recommendations. And it's a very collaborative process. Like, as I send over an initial itinerary proposal, I want my clients' feedback. You
Nice.
telling me, like, yes, this looks great. That's exciting for me, but I'd almost rather hear, I love X, Y, and Z, but let's tweak this, because
Right.
then I really know that what I am sending you on your trip to do is really, really customized and personalized to you. So it's getting on that phone call, and then from me using my relationships to start building out an itinerary proposal.
And it's funny you say that because the only thing that's more depressing than in the airport is if you go into a bad vacation, right? Because then
It's terrible.
it's
It's terrible.
oh,
You're like, I'm wasting my hard-earned vacation days, my
yes,
money,
yes.
and I'm doing, I mean, God forbid if you're with the kids too.
And then I mean, like it's a comedy, and there's been movies made about what happens when those things go sideways, right?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. So I do everything in my power to make sure that that does not happen.
Right, right. I
Yeah.
chuckle
And
just think,
I mean, inevitably there will be hiccups along the way,
right,
right? Like, we don't have control over airlines. Like,
weather,
if your flight gets delayed and you miss your connection, but knowing that you have a resource to be able to reach out to be like,
yeah,
"Oh my gosh, Jessica, what do I do?"
correct,
I'm here to help and support. So
right.
while you're at the airport dealing with talking to the ticketing desk, I'm on the phone as well with the airline, kind of simultaneously
Nice,
tackling this
nice,
together.
nice.
Yeah, just knowing that you have that support while traveling, should anything happen, is also comforting.
How did you get, as much as you can divulge? How do you get these connections to these locations worldwide? Did you utilize it while you did your own personal travel, or did you all of a sudden, hey, this is my business, I'm bringing people on board, and this is how can establish a relationship with you, whether you're an adventure, hotel, travel and lodge, etc.
Yeah, so there's a few different ways. Yes, of course, like whenever I'm personally traveling, always I love hotels. So going and touring a hotel to understand like the personality and vibe of that
Right.
particular hotel, I love it. My husband sometimes gets irritated on our personal travels because he's like, "Do we have to stop at another hotel?" Yes, I love
Oh,
it.
absolutely, dude. You kidding me?
It's so fun for me. So that of course, and then obviously making the relationships with the GM, the sales managers there on property. So that's one avenue. Another is the hoteliers, tour guides, DMs, destination management companies. They'll
Yep.
actually come to travel advisors and show us about and tell us about their company. So I live in Austin, Texas, and so there will be like a group of hotels that will come into Austin and say host a dinner. And so we go to that dinner as travel advisors and learn all about these hotels and kind of make that initial connection. And then
Right.
it's up to us as a travel advisor to kind of continue those relationships and learning about that particular property or destination. So that's another avenue. And then the third way is through consortia. So I'm a Virtuoso certified
Yeah.
travel advisor. So I'm a part of the Virtuoso organization,
Right.
which basically they connect luxury travel advisors
Uh-huh.
and luxury travel suppliers. So again, the hotels, the cruise lines, the
Correct.
airlines. And so through that, it helps us to connect with them and be able to kind of plant the seed for those relationships. It's then on us to manage growing those relationships,
Sure.
and when we can visit their properties. We
Right.
have this big kind of a trade show networking of a sorts.
Nice.
It's called Virtuoso Travel Week, and it's held every year in August in Vegas. And there's thousands and thousands of travel advisors and
Nice.
travel industry suppliers where we go and basically do speed dating for a
Yeah.
week. meeting.
Switch
And
table after table after table and stuff like that. Dope,
yep,
dope.
yep, yep. Because I mean, we're dealing with the whole world here, right? So we've got to move quickly to make those initial connections, but then we do our research once we get back to our office and again, kind of continue building those relationships. So bit of a long-winded answer, but
No, it makes sense because I ask these questions because vacation is so personal, right? Because
yeah,
as soon as whether it's people plan these things a year ahead of time, particularly even especially when it comes to weddings, honeymoons, those are very very intimate and personal things that people plan,
yeah,
and they're still trying to manage their everyday regular lives while doing that, and having somebody who can actually do that for them is a
yeah,
great thing because, and particularly as a guy, you're like, listen, your head's spinning 1,000 miles an hour, right? You're listening to the To Be Bride, and you're
yeah,
just like, talk to Jessica, thank you very much, because this is what I like, this is, and I'll just
yeah,
kind of go along with, for lack of a better term, what she likes, and let's meet somewhere in the middle. But that
yeah.
makes a lot of sense when you explain that, because there's so much unknown that you truly don't know when you're traveling.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes given the example of honeymoons or anniversary trips, really kind of any vacation, two people may not necessarily want to do the exact same things on the trip,
Correct.
right? And so
Correct.
part of my job is to kind of marry that together so that sorry about that.
No,
So
I'm sorry, you're
that
busy.
everybody's happy, right? So that
Absolutely.
you are, if you have someone who likes to do a lot of just kind of lounging and beach time, but then someone else who wants to be out and adventure and
Exactly.
get in the culture, it's blending that together to where everybody's happy. And that's what I do. And I absolutely love it.
That's fantastic. And the crazy part is you get to see people when they can come back and say, thank you, you made my experience that much better in life,
Yeah.
right? Because you really have such a limited amount of free time in life. And, when you get an experience, to get out of the country or go somewhere where you haven't been, or even if you repeat too, it's nice to know that you've enhanced that experience and made it so personal for somebody. How do your corporate clients, is it corporate trips, retreats?
Yeah. So mostly with corporate clients, I'm doing sales incentive trips. So
Okay. Okay.
typically it's corporations that are, they have their sales teams and they want to reward their top producers, right? And
Nice.
so they are hosting a trip for them to go and, I mean, it's fun and
Yeah.
work, right?
Team
So
building and everything. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's going to be some sort of education component usually. So that
Right.
may look like needing to reserve a meeting space
Yeah.
and having meals set up for those sorts of things. But
Right.
then there's also the fun component as well. So wanting them to feel rewarded for their hard work and meeting their sales thresholds. And so I am working with those corporations to secure room blocks and to ensure
Nice.
that they've got enough rooms for all of their top producers as well as event space. And so once I get that all secured and contracted for them, then we hand it over to a third party event planning team, or some of them have in house event planning teams. But I think the biggest part of that is helping them to find the right resort and sometimes even the right destination. Sometimes they'll come to me not really sure where they'd like to go, but kind of have their top 5 list of items that we kind of must meet within that resort. And so kind of guiding them and finding the right option for them. So
Fantastic.
and then again, kind of during travel, again, there's always going to be hiccups. So if we've got someone who missed their flight and we need to rebook a
Oh,
flight,
man.
then it's rebooking airport transportation, so having
Mhm.
that support to where they're not having to worry about that, they can enjoy their time at the resort.
How big is your team? I saw you have someone on your team as well too,
Yep.
and is there somebody outside of that, or how big is your team network to handle this amount of volume with people?
Yeah, so it's just myself and my assistant. Yeah, yeah. We field a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls, but I think that um as you mentioned, I'm a mother as well. So
Right.
something
Right.
that's super important to me is trying to keep that balance
Yeah.
of work and being able to be very involved in my kids' lives. And so I don't necessarily take on every single client that reaches out because
Right.
it's not I may not always be a good fit, if it's a
And that.
destination that I don't really know particularly well,
Right.
I will let you know that and potentially refer you to a travel advisor that I know that does know that area
That can
really
accommodate you.
well.
Right.
Yeah. because I think it's super important for clients to feel supported, and that their travel advisor is obviously knowledgeable in the destination that they're interested in. So yeah, it's a fun balance of work and being a mom and doing all the life things as well.
Well, because at the same time too is that there's also different time zones that people are traveling to, and so
Yeah.
then it could be compassing. Well, you're contacting me in the morning in your time, and it's nighttime in my time. There's a balance that you have to strike when it comes because you're dealing globally. This
Yeah,
is
so I'm so glad that you brought that up because I think that that is also something that people are not aware of. An advantage in using a travel advisor is that if I have clients that are traveling internationally, particularly if they are going to a time zone that is drastically different than where I'm at, I'm always providing them with an in-country point of contact. So it's
yes,
not necessarily an employee of my team, but it
right,
is someone who has been involved in their trip planning process that is in that destination. So typically it's through what's called a DMC, a destination management company
okay,
that I partner with to plan trips that are throughout the world, right? So
hmm
if it's a Europe trip, if it's Africa, Australia, typically I'm using a DMC partner, and
right.
it allows that client to have a point of contact in destination
That is
that they
nice.
can reach out to should they need anything. And of course, they can always like text me or WhatsApp me.
If you need
But if
to
it's
go,
2 o'clock in the morning here, I'm not going to
you're
answer.
human. No, no, no.
Yeah, so you do have an in-country point of contact that will, because
The
that is
relationship,
a big reason of why, exactly why I use a DMC, is to provide that on the ground support.
and I
And
didn't
I
even
can give
think
you
about
like,
that.
yeah, I can give you tons of examples
Yeah,
of situations where it comes super, super advantageous for the clients. And most people aren't aware that that is someone that is also involved in their trip that wouldn't be if you're going online and booking directly through like an Orbitz or a Expedia or something like that.
so if I can just briefly summarize this a little bit, it's almost like when they book, here's their itinerary, their points of contact when they land. I'm probably saying this in a very general term, but this is who your resource support would be based on your location and destination. And here's your customized experience when you land and the things that you can do personalized specifically for you and whoever else you've gone with. Is that,
Correct. Yeah.
yeah,
So whenever I'm building out that itinerary proposal, it just to propose to them, here's what I think could be a good fit for you.
yeah,
I'm already in that point in the process, already working with that
got it.
DMC to
Nice.
where they're involved from the very get go. That way, they all of the information that I have about my clients, I have then
hmm
shared with them, down to if the client has like a gluten allergy.
Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
we're
That,
putting like an amenity in their room, like don't put the breakfast spreads if someone has a gluten allergy,
no
or
question. Without question.
if they don't drink alcohol, okay, well, we definitely don't want the bottle of champagne amenity, those sorts
Right.
of things. So,
That's wonderful.
yeah, sharing all of that with all parties involved, even the hotels, making sure that they're aware of those things. It's so many things on the back end that the client doesn't even realize is happening, but that helps to ensure that things run smoothly for them during their trip.
Well, I think too is that they would get it and they didn't even realize how much they would have missed it because like you know how you quote unquote, you don't miss what you never lost, right? So to
Right.
speak. So it's like you already had everything already in place and you're like, wow, the flowers are there. They already know my food. My kids
Yeah.
have allergies. They didn't bring that to it. And you're not, God forbid there's a language barrier, of where
Right.
you went to and you're trying to explain to whoever you're trying to explain to that there's an allergy or those are all the things that, you don't even think of,
Right.
because
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had some clients traveling with their kids in Italy. As far as amenities, I made sure that all of the hotels knew, hey, not only are they bringing their kids, but this couple doesn't drink alcohol. So please
right.
have all alcohol removed, and let's actually put like an apple juice or a milk or something
Yeah.
in the room that
Yeah.
the kids will appreciate. And if the
Yeah.
kids appreciate it, I guarantee you the parents are going to appreciate it too.
For sure. Yeah, and it's
Anything that
great.
can make the parents' lives easier.
Right, and the thing is about it too. I'm just picturing in my head. You're jet lagged, you're tired, you get to the hotel, and then you see a glass of champagne, and then you let out that sigh. Oh,
Yeah.
like seriously, right? And then all of a sudden, like, it just takes your mood from your euphoria to like rock bottom when all you saw was a glass of wine and you don't drink. Right?
Yeah, yeah, it's like, man, like,
Yeah, yeah.
couldn't
And
I have
some other
asked
words.
for my sparkling water instead, you know? So yeah, I mean, one of the questions that I ask on my like profile form for my clients is like, what are your favorite drinks? What are your favorite snacks? Do you have any
Right.
food allergies? And it's all of those little things that add up, you know?
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, you don't realize how important those things are until you've had them. And then it's like, I don't want to travel without that ever
You
again.
don't
You
get
know?
right. Then, because I travel with my kids. Luckily, they don't have, some can't. Some of them are allergic to peanuts. Some of them are allergic to
Yeah.
eggs. And then you're like, man, you have to start asking, did you cook in
Yeah.
peanut oil back? Seriously, and you're stuck in there. And then you may have to get up and leave.
Oh,
When you find out they cook in peanut oil, so it makes it you're just it's amazing how personal it is because you're dealing really quick with a potential life and death situation. You know,
yeah, absolutely. Anything that I can do to ensure that things run smoothly on their trip is what I'm here for, you know? Because as we've already talked about, like traveling is expensive, and we don't have all the time in the world to be able to travel. Well, at least
right.
most people don't. And so that time is really, really precious. And making sure that it goes as well as it possibly can. Is super important, and I don't take that job lightly.
How many do you get a lot of customer and this is gonna be my ignorance, because you're online, there's a lot do you get people from everywhere that you service from across the country that can utilize your service? It's not obviously you're based in Austin, but
Yeah.
anybody can utilize you when it comes to your travel agency, correct?
Correct. Yes. I mean, all of my clients do live in the US,
Mhm.
because I mean, part of what I advise my clients on is, okay, obviously, if you're traveling internationally, you've got to have your passport.
Yes.
Any
Yes.
particular visas we're looking at from a standpoint of being a US citizen, those sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, I can technically work with any clients anywhere in the country.
Yeah.
I would say most of my clients are focused like Dallas, Houston. I have several in LA and New York, some
Nice. Nice.
Chicago. But yeah, honestly, really anywhere in the country.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I was just curious, because I know word of mouth travels fast and
Yeah.
experiences particular. People in real time, if they will be eating their food at somewhere they don't like and will be bombing it, or let's talk positive too. We'll be giving it a lot of credit in real time while things are happening. The,
Yeah.
the process of hiding behind good or bad service is, for lack of a better term, gone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I always welcome feedback, whether it's on my service, on how the trip went, the hotel, the tour guides, all of that feedback it's truly only nothing but helpful for me because it
Oh,
allows me to better customize each trip for each client. So,
I meant more for where people go just on their own as opposed to your service. I don't want to in any way,
oh,
shape, or form say that I was talking about you. I'm talking about if you went to a bad place to eat, like the days of like, the owner scrubbing the review that's not gonna happen.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no.
No.
Google doesn't let you do that.
No, it's not gonna happen. No, not at all. So, obviously when it comes to your preparation for your clients and you plan things out and you're doing weddings and you're doing honeymoons, there's gotta be a certain level of just personal satisfaction you're getting out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whenever a client at the end of their trip, hopefully they will give me some sort of feedback. I like crave that feedback. That to me, understanding that and knowing that they had an incredible trip
Yes.
and that they felt special on their vacation. They felt the care that I took in kind of crafting their trip for them.
Right.
It means everything. One kind of situation that comes to mind is I had some clients that were wanting to do Italy and Switzerland,
Oh, wow.
and just for this particular trip, it was their honeymoon. They just didn't have the budget to do Italy and Switzerland. I mean, both very expensive
Oh, no
countries,
question.
but they I was kind of trying to understand, like Italy was a must, they definitely wanted that, but Switzerland they were okay with potentially not doing, but they definitely wanted to do a secondary country. And so I was trying to
Right.
understand what specifically about Switzerland that they were interested in. And it was mostly about the landscapes. They wanted like beautiful landscapes to look at, and so we were
Mhm.
looking at other countries that we could pair with Italy that had beautiful landscapes. And so we settled in Slovenia, and they knew
Nice.
nothing about Slovenia. And that was actually one of the relationships that I had made through
That's
one of
crazy.
these things that I had went through.
That's
So
crazy.
Yeah, I've never personally been to Slovenia myself, but I had learned about it, and I felt like everything that I had learned about this destination was something that was kind of checking the boxes that they wanted
Gotcha.
for this trip. And they went and I had another call for another trip for them
Yeah,
2 weeks ago, and they were just raving about Slovenia and how much they loved it and how grateful they were that I had
that's
told them about this
fantastic. That's
country.
awesome.
And their tour guide there, they absolutely loved and follow him on Facebook now, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That to me is super rewarding to be able to help clients pick the right destination for what it is that they're looking for, because it sometimes they come to me and what they're looking for and the places that they're saying they want to go don't align. And
Right.
so being able to kind of steer them in the right direction is super rewarding as
And
well.
then you can look that up while they're doing the rest of their actual lives, right? So
Yeah.
while they're actually, because then you start, you may not be having the time to research it because they're being pulled in XYZ amount of direction. They have a dedicated individual solely for their experience, and that's what
Yeah.
matters the most for them on the back end. So when they get on that plane, they know Jessica and J.Upton Travel has already taken care of everything you could on your end, and they don't have to think about, okay, where am I staying? Where is there food for the kids? Everything's taken care of. A country that I've never looked up or been to in my entire life, and you're like, trust me, I did all my homework. You're gonna love it, and
Yeah.
that's something that you can't replace.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm so grateful for your time.
Thank you.
Looking at your story is very inspiring, and you get a chance to help people and visit wonderful places yourself. I'm so honored to have your time, and more importantly, you have some really cool Instagram like reels when it comes to like the comedy of when people screw things up, right? Like the David Schwimmer, where like the person was planning it and they're like, "No, I'm not really happy. No, I'm fine. I'm fine." I thought those were hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you get those tidbits of from your friends of, "You should stay here, it was great." And then you get there and you're like, "Not so much. This isn't so great for me." Yeah, yeah.
Because what was good for them may not be good for them.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
That is fantastic. Real quick before we depart, please let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
So, yes, on Instagram, you can find me at J.Upton Travel, just the letter J,
Yeah.
J-U-P-T-O-N. And then my website is juptontravel.com. But Instagram is where I'm most active. So, thank you
Yeah.
so
Well,
much
you
for
do
taking the time to chat with me.
absolutely. You do wonderful things, and people's experiences in particular are things that are so personal, and people are shaped by them. And I want to say that a good vacation you'll remember, a bad vacation you'll remember even more.
Yeah, that's so true.
Jessica Upton, thank you so much for taking time out on the Tron podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yep.
Bye.